You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. You can find us on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/The Wells Report, and you will be teleported instantly right into the studio in which I'm sitting. That's right. And you can enjoy my cologne if you are watching on Smell-O-Vision. Smell-O-Vision, get it? Smell-O-Vision? No? Okay. Anyway, the way it works is that you can take part in the chat room that is ripping and roaring today on the Wells Report. Lots of people weighing in with all kinds of things. Bradley Hankins says they're grasping at straws for any possible thing they can find. I think it's funny that after the hearing, Dems jumped back on the impeachment bandwagon. Jamie Lubeck says, Trump had the right to tell Mueller and company to pound sand. I think, however, that would have been a mistake. Indeed, it would have been. The president has also got the constitutional right not to self-incrimination. I believe that also includes his advisors under executive privilege. Again, you are completely correct. There is something else, however. The president would not have to worry about self-incrimination because he had done nothing criminal. The idea of saying that Robert Mueller has to go because of conflict of interest is not any crime. It's not even obstruction of justice. Now, the thing about it is that it becomes a lot more difficult to just blow off when your White House counsel, and apparently there should be, at least at some level, attorney-client privilege between the White House counsel and the president, you would think. But once again, this gets back to, can the president have a private conversation in the Oval Office? The answer is no. And he does have executive privilege to protect himself. He should have used that, but he did not. He says, I'm not guilty of anything. Okay, I'm not going to get pounded. I am not going to get pounded for firing Robert S. Mueller III when I didn't fire Robert S. Mueller III. He says that is the long and short of it. Mark Johnson talked about that when he was going through this brilliant summation I played a couple of seconds ago. Somebody else did some great work. Who did some great work? Well, it was Debbie Lesko. She pointed out something that I think was pretty impressive. Listen to this.
Mr. Mueller, rather than purely relying on the evidence provided by witnesses and documents, I think you relied a lot on media. I'd like to know how many times you cited the Washington Post in your report.
How many times I what?
Cited the Washington Post in your report.
I do not have knowledge of that figure, but that's it. I don't have knowledge of that figure.
I counted about 60 times. How many times did you cite the New York Times?
Again, I have no idea.
I counted about 75 times. How many times did you cite Fox News?
As with the other two, I have no idea.
About 25 times. I've got to say, it looks like Volume 2 is mostly regurgitated press stories. Honestly, there's almost nothing in Volume 2 that I couldn't already hear or know simply by having a $50 cable news subscription. However, your investigation cost the American taxpayers $25 million.
Okay, that's Debbie Lesko of Arizona. She points out some very important things. You might have thought that was just laziness on the part of Robert S. Mueller III. When she says, how many times did you invoke the New York Times, the Washington Post, Fox News, etc.? But that's not why she brought that up. Here's why she brought that up, or at least why you should think it was important that she brought that up. And that has to do with this. I have long noted that elite Democrats and the mainstream media are one and the same, and they work together to the benefit of the political agenda from the left. If you agree with that, then what you're saying is, or what you must see is, that Robert S. Mueller III, in the report that's called the Mueller Report, which is not the Mueller Report, it's the Andrew Weissmann Report, you have to say, okay, so this is another case of the left working with the media and the media working with the left, one hand washing the other. That is significant. Because remember the propaganda-esque reality of the current mainstream media. It is a terrible thing. It is damaging this nation. And we see a perfect example of government leftists working with the mainstream media and vice versa. That's an important point that you need to take with you out of this. The other thing is this. Robert S. Mueller III did not write this report. There are people who assert that he didn't even read it. I think he probably did read some of it, or at least he scanned some of it as somebody put it in front of him and said, would you please sign this? And I'm sure he looked it over before he signed it. The reason I say that this is absolutely the case is because Robert S. Mueller III knows what obstruction of justice is and isn't. He knows the legal ramifications of obstruction of justice just as well as anybody. However, the Andrew Weissmann-esque lawyers that were on that particular investigative team, they're simply trying to create a piece of paper that damages the president in every possible way. And so what has happened is that they've gone away from prosecutorial language, which would mean that we do not find sufficient evidence to proceed, to we will not make a decision one way or another. And then that's where the phrase, we are not going to exonerate the president comes from. That is not prosecutorial language. That is political / anti-Trump propagandist language. And that is exactly what we have here. That's something else you need to take away from this. The other thing you need to take away from is that that Robert Mueller would not answer any questions about the Steele dossier. Jim Jordan, the Republican from Ohio, illustrated that brilliantly.
The FBI interviewed Joseph Mifsud on February 10th, 2017. In that interview, Mr. Mifsud lied. You point this out on page 193, volume 1. Mifsud denied. Mifsud also falsely stated. In addition, Mifsud omitted. 3 times he lied to the FBI, yet you didn't charge him with the crime.
Excuse me, did you say one? I'm sorry, did you say 193?
Volume 1, 193. He lied 3 times. You pointed out in the report. Why didn't you charge him with the crime?
I can't get into internal deliberations with regard who would or would not be.
Charge a lot of other people for making a false statement. Let's remember this. In 2016, the FBI did something they probably haven't done before. They spied on 2 American citizens associated with a presidential campaign, George Papadopoulos and Carter Page. With Carter Page, they went to the FISA court. They used the now famous dossier as part of the reason they were able to get the warrant and spy on Carter Page for a better part of a year. With Mr. Papadopoulos, they didn't go to the court. They used human sources. All kinds of, from about the moment Papadopoulos joins the Trump campaign, you got all these people all around the world starting to swirl around him. Names like Halper, Downer, Mifsud, Thompson, meeting in Rome, London, all kinds of places. The FBI even sent a lady posing as somebody else, went by the name Azra Turk, even dispatched her to London to spy on Mr. Papadopoulos. In one of these meetings, Mr. Papadopoulos is talking to a foreign diplomat, and he tells the diplomat, Russians have dirt on Clinton. That diplomat then contacts the FBI, and the FBI opens an investigation based on that fact. You point this out on page 1 of the report. July 31st, 2016, they open the investigation based on that piece of information. Diplomat tells Papadopoulos, Papadopoulos tells the diplomat, Russians have dirt on Clinton. Diplomat tells the FBI. What I'm wondering is, who told Papadopoulos? How'd he find out?
I can't get into the evidentiary file.
Yes, you can, because you wrote about it. You gave us the answer. Page 192 of the report, you tell us who told him. Joseph Mifsud. Joseph Mifsud's the guy who told Papadopoulos. The mysterious professor who lives in Rome and London, teaches in 2 different universities. This is the guy who told Papadopoulos. He's the guy who starts it all. And when the FBI interviews him, he lies 3 times. And yet you don't charge him with a crime. You charge Rick Gates for false statements. You charge Paul Manafort for false statements. You charge Michael Cohen with false statements. You charge Michael Flynn, a 3-star general, with false statements. But the guy who puts the country through this whole saga, starts it all for 3 years we've lived this now, he lies and you guys don't charge him. And I'm curious as to why.
Well, I can't get into it, and it's obvious, I think, that we can't get into charging decisions.
When the FBI interviewed him in February, FBI interviews him in February, when the special counsel's office interviewed Mifsud, did he lie to you guys too?
Can't get into that.
Did you interview Mifsud?
Can't get into that.
Is Mifsud Western intelligence or Russian intelligence?
Can't get into that.
A lot of things you can't get into. What's interesting, you can charge 13 Russians no one's ever heard of, no one's ever seen, no one's ever going to hear of them, no one's ever going to see them. You can charge them. You can charge all kinds of people who are around the president with false statements. But the guy who launches the guy who puts this whole story in motion, you can't charge him. I think that's amazing.
I'm not certain I agree with your characterizations.
Well, I'm reading from your report. Mifsud told Papadopoulos. Papadopoulos tells the diplomat tells the FBI opens the investigation July 31st, 2016, and here we are 3 years later, July of 2019, the country's been put through this, and the central figure who launches it all lies to us, and you guys don't hunt him down and interview him again, and you don't charge him with a crime. Now here's the good news. Here's the good news. The president was falsely accused of conspiracy. The FBI does a 10-month investigation, and James Comey, when we deposed him a year ago, told us at that point they had nothing. You do a 22-month investigation. At the end of that 22 months, you find no conspiracy. And what's the Democrats want to do? They want to keep investigating. They want to keep going. Maybe a better course of action is to figure out how the false accusation started. Maybe it's to go back and actually figure out why Joseph Mifsud was lying to the FBI. And here's the good news. Here's the good news. That's exactly what Bill Barr's doing. And thank goodness for that. That's exactly what the Attorney General and John Durham are doing. They're going to find out why we went through this three-year saga and get to the bottom of it.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
And so there you have it. Robert Mueller refused to answer questions that were actually...
Monica from DNC
sorry,
Solutions.
hang on just a second. Dagnabbit. Anyway, he refused to answer questions that he answered in the report. He refused to answer questions about things that were in the report, saying he couldn't get into that when he got into it. These are the things you need to keep in mind. When you start thinking about all of this, these are the things you need to keep in mind. Now, one last thing about this. It is absolutely going to be true that sooner or later, we're going to find out whether or not there was a predicate to start investigating the Trump campaign and workers of the Trump campaign for espionage. We're going to find out whether or not there was actual, honest, probable cause. We're going to find out why the FBI used a discredited report, discredited almost from the get-go, that was handed to Christopher Steele from Russian operatives surely involved in the disinformation campaign that this is all built on. The disinformation campaign that was designed to disrupt the federal election of 2016. It comes from the Russians. It goes to Christopher Steele. It goes from Christopher Steele to Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS. It goes from Glenn Simpson from GPS to the Democrat National Committee and concurrently to the Hillary Clinton campaign. And yet, the President of the United States is somehow, according to Adam Schiff, guilty of anti-American activities for agreeing to meet with someone who says they have negative information on Hillary Clinton, but in fact, there is no negative information. None is ever given. And while the enthusiastic welcome of the Steele dossier was immediately apparent in the DNC and Hillary Clinton's campaign, the president got nothing from this supposed circumstance, these meetings, and yet he's guilty of un-American activities. That's all you need to know. That's all you have to know about all of this. You've just heard the fact that Robert Mueller did not write the report. Leftist, radical, progressive lawyers wrote the report, which is why there is no prosecutorial language regarding obstruction of justice. While there is anti-prosecutorial language, we did not exonerate the president, not the job of the prosecutor. That's not the job. The ridiculous foolishness is of all of this, if there was indeed enough evidence to actually move forward with obstruction of justice, do you not think that the people involved in the Mueller report would not have proceeded immediately? The story would have been simple. No president, not even a president, is above the law. We are asking, therefore, for an indictment. But they couldn't do it. The reason they couldn't do it is they didn't have a case. They could have done it without a case anyway, but when all of it came down and all was said and done, they would have been in disgrace, sort of like they are now.
It is a horrible scenario, but it happens. Dennis writes about his wife. She was diagnosed with leukemia. In fact, she's a 2-time survivor. And in the midst of all that, they ran up over $1 million in medical bills. Thankfully, they're Medi-Share members. And Dennis says they are so thankful for that, how others came together to meet their needs. And that's how so many Medi-Share members feel. This is not health insurance. It's different. You don't have to pay for things you don't believe in. And like Dennis found out, it just works. So if you join Medi-Share, not only do you save a lot of money, the typical family saves about $500 a month, but you know where your money's going each month. You're helping people, and if the time should come, they'll be helping and even praying for you. So yes, it's different, and as more than 400,000 people now know when it comes to healthcare costs, different is beautiful. Find out more. Call 833-34-BIBLE. That's 833-34-BIBLE. 833-34-BIBLE.
Are you drowning in debt? Are you struggling to make minimum payments? Did you know that on average, a household with at least one credit card struggles with over $15,000 in credit card debt? If this sounds like you, know that it's not your fault. Credit card debt happens to good people. Credit card companies lure you in with low introductory rates and low minimum payments. Before you know it, you're in over your head. National Debt Relief has helped thousands of good people just like you become debt-free with our Debt Reset program that will dramatically reduce your debt down to a fraction of what you owe. Our Debt Reset program is customized to get you debt-free in as little as 24 to 48 months with one low monthly payment. If you owe over $10,000 in credit card debt or even personal loans, call 800-274-9490. There are no upfront fees or out-of-pocket expenses. You don't pay a dime until we succeed. Call now to see how the Debt Reset program can work for you. 800-274-9490. That's 800-274-9490. 800-274-9490.
Balance of Nature. Changing the world, one life at a time.
I'm loving my Balance of Nature. Since I started, I have not gotten one cold. I kind of fight everything. I get a little tickle, but it goes away.
It's just amazing the difference I felt. I want you to know how much I appreciate the counseling and so forth and your attention to your people. I have been a pretty big advocate for the Balance of Nature. I don't know how many truck drivers have asked me, how in the heck do you keep going at 88, 89 years old? I said, Balance of Nature. If they want to really enjoy some good health, get on Balance of Nature.
Experience the Balance of Nature difference for yourself. For a limited time, you can receive a 30% discount and free shipping on your first preferred order of Balance of Nature. Call 800-2468-751 or go to balanceofnature.com and use discount code USA.
You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 844-RADIO-US, 844-723-4687. Mark Meadows. Mueller lacked the grasp of basic facts of his own probe. He whiffed on a softball question. That's former special counsel Robert Mueller, who could not recall basic information about the 2-year-long Russia investigation. Yeah, I was right there next to Bob Mueller for the entire judiciary hearing. It was obvious that he was not prepared, did not have a grasp of the basic facts. It was very alarming. It was a political hit job by leftist lawyers masquerading as a special counsel staff investigating a president. The editorial board of the USA Today says this: Robert Mueller came before Congress wielding enormous influence as the man appointed to investigate Russian interference in the 2016 election. Even before the special counsel began testifying, two-thirds of Americans, including 60% of Republicans, viewed Mueller as fair despite President Donald Trump's relentless attacks on his investigation. The networks carried his testimony to two House committees. The president's potential fate lay in his hands. If Democrats expected the former FBI director to galvanize the nation in favor of impeachment, they sorely misread the man in the moment. Approaching the hearings with all the enthusiasm of a dental patient scheduled for a root canal, Mueller stoically refused to shed new light on the dense 448-page report his office issued. "I direct you to the report" became Mueller's mantra of the day. There is no wish, at least among most Americans, for impeachment. There are several different repercussions. Of 235 House Democrats, at least 92 have endorsed launching an impeachment inquiry of President Trump, importantly, not including House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Before the hearings, those who support the impeachment saw Mueller's testimony as the most likely way to ignite outrage and perhaps meet Pelosi's demand that there be broad public sentiment and the possibility of winning a conviction in the Republican-controlled Senate before moving forward. Mueller outlined an assault on democracy by Russians and a response by President Trump and his campaign that was problematic, and worse, his testimony left Democrats frustrated. As he had warned beforehand, he declined to expand on the contents of the 448-page report. He could not. He could not expand on that report. To do so would force the question, Mr. Mueller, why are you testifying to that, and why is it not in the report if you felt it was important enough to testify in front of us in public about it? The DOJ told Mueller, no, you're not going to make news this time. You stick to the report, period. The default answer became, I'm not going to get into that, I'm not going to talk about that, I'm not going to discuss that, blah, blah, blah. The yawning, huge danger for Mueller had to do with the Steele report and the predicate for his investigation in the first place. And he simply refused to talk about any of it. And so, none of that information came to the fore. Had he been forced to talk about it, even to the limit of the report, it would have been a far worse event for everyone involved, including Robert Mueller. It would have gone absolutely, whatever plans have been put in place, they would have been immediately stopped. As well, they should have. Indicting the president, it could happen, Mueller made clear, once Trump was moved out of the White House. I think that's ridiculous. I think it's sophistry because, believe me, if they had enough information, if they had enough evidence to indict the president, they would have. Mueller's testimony may have hardened public views. It's hard to believe he reshaped them. Before the hearing, most Americans opposed to impeaching President Trump. In an ABC News Washington Post poll, nearly 6 in 10 said the House should not launch impeachment proceedings. Nominating a Democrat. Mueller sometimes stumbled in his responses, often asked the questions be repeated. Understandably, he looked exhausted by the end of the testimony. When Democrat Representative Greg Stanton of Arizona lobbed what was intended to be a softball, Mueller was unable to remember which president appointed him as U.S. Attorney in Massachusetts. And then, the Trump takeaway. Judging from the temperature of his tweets, President Trump moved from early morning anger to afternoon delight. No collusion, no obstruction, he declared. The greatest witch hunt in history, U.S. history by far. I would like to thank Democrats for holding this morning's meetings and hearings. They were a disaster for Robert Mueller and the Democrats. Truth is a force of nature. There are other comments. There are other important words being said regarding this. We'll get into those, but none are more important than yours. 844-RADIO-US, 844-723-4687. What did you hear in the hearings yesterday?
I used to wonder when I saw people going into nice hotels, really nice hotels, taking a pillow with them. That was before I got a MyPillow, because I know it doesn't matter where I'm going, whether I'm going to a 1-star, 3-star, 5-star hotel, MyPillow goes with me. whether it's just overnight or whether it's on vacation. And here's the great deal about MyPillow right now. The lowest price ever offered on radio or TV. 2 MyPillow premium pillows for $69.98. That's only $34.99 per pillow. The lowest price ever offered on radio or TV. And it's still the same pillow. Great pillow, 60-day money-back guarantee, 10-year warranty. And call them, 1-800-951-8175, or go to MyPillow.com, use promo code USA, click on the 2-pack special, and get the best deal you've ever gotten on a good night's sleep when you get a MyPillow.